So we have a team of champions here to help you and answer your questions. So we have a certain set of submitted questions already, but if you do have any new questions, please do drop them in the chat and we'll try to answer them as well. So, before we start, we'd just like to share with you how you can find the recording of this. So, this session is being recorded, and you'll be able to find this recording in the Adobe Analytics user groups, the Adobe Analytics user group YouTube channel. So, the link will also be provided. So, you should be able to see that in the next few days. So, as I mentioned, we have a team of champions here to address your questions today. So, we'll first introduce ourselves and then we'll get started with the session. So, I'd go with myself first. I'm Anu Abraham and I'm part of Publicis Sapient and I'm working as a senior associate in the data analytics team there. I have around 9 years of experience working with Adobe Analytics and Adobe Target and also a few other solutions in the Adobe Experience Cloud. So this is my second year in the Champions program. And I really love connecting with other people and collaborating with them on any queries and matters related to the Adobe Experience Cloud solution, especially analytics and Target. So yeah, looking forward to have a great session with you all. So Abhinav, would you like to go next?
Sure, Anu. Hello everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. I am Abhinav. I work as manager for data analytics with Publicis Sapient. I have almost 13 to 14 years of experience working across Adobe Martech stack. So I started with Adobe Analytics, then Target, and these days we're exploring AEP, Web SDK, and CDP as well. This is my first time as an Adobe champion, and technically this is my first office hour. So looking forward to contribute. Thank you.
Hey everyone, hi. Arun here. So I work as an enterprise architect in Extro Digital. I have 14 years of experience in analytics, data management platforms, and right now into platform solutions. I live in Chennai and right now traveling to Chicago for the Adobe Summit. And yeah, that's it.
Sure. Sumit, do you like to
Yeah.
go next?
Hi everyone. So welcome to Office Hours. My name is Sumit Kumar. I work with Shell as a tech lead, working in different Adobe solutions, analytics, target, customer data platforms. So we have got expertise in tagging implementation and also on the areas like data and insights, personalizations, visitor identification, GDPR compliance, and cookie consent management platform, MMP, etc. So looking forward to help you with this office hour.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks all for the introductions. And probably if time permits towards the end, Sumit and Arun could share their experience at the summit because they've both attended the summit in person. So yeah, looking forward to that as well. So yeah, let's get started with today's questions. So the first one is about activity map in AEP. So this person wanted to know about the integration of activity map in AEP and asked, does activity map send additional server calls if enabled, which can affect the bounce rate of the page? So I'd probably start with this, and then Abhinav and Sumit will also explain about their take on this. So in the newer version of the Adobe AP Web SDK extension, there is an option to explicitly enable this. So there are three options or the ways of configuration which you can do for this. So based on that, which kind of configuration that you take, that would determine if that would incur additional server calls or not. And there are definitely ways in which you can do that without any additional server calls, which is recommended. But in case if you want to track that as a separate one, then that is also possible. So these three options are highlighted in the screenshot, if you can see that here. So this would be under the data collection options, and then you'd be able to see collect internal link clicks here. So this would only be enabled if you have clicked on activity reporter under custom components. That is like a new feature. So you need to ensure that you are on the latest version of the AEP Web SDK extension, and then you'd be able to like see this option. So these are the three options that you'd get to see here, and the one that shows no event grouping. So this is the one that would send the like link click as a separate one, and that is sent immediately, without waiting for the next page load. And the other two that are listed in here, it's with the event grouping using with session storage, and also the one that is using local objects. These are the ones that will not incur any additional charges or additional server calls, and that would be like send along with the next page view event. And another one point to note is that, though we mentioned it in the context of AP, this will not be applicable to CJA because this functionality is not like it's not in the scope yet. So this would be only applicable to like Adobe Analytics. So Abhinav, would you like to like go through in detail about this?
Sure, absolutely, Anu. So, as Anu mentioned, this functionality with respect to activity map that is supported by WebSDK. Now, there are different versions of AEP WebSDK that are available, and I'll start with the most recent one, 2.19. And there's a new feature that has been added as part of the release for this time. You get to control which components load on the website. So, and if you scroll down, I'll just quickly start with the component part first. I'm not sure if we have that screenshot. Sorry, we might not have it. So basically, with the 2.19, you get to select the components that you want to load on the website, and this gives you an ability to load only the specific components which are relevant to the tagging that you're performing, instead of loading all the components together and then set up different rules, data elements. One of the biggest advantage of using this feature is that you can reduce the overall library size. That means the faster page load time and overall page performance. So in order to test this feature, as Anu mentioned, there are three different mechanisms. First, you need to make sure that if you're using the latest version of the extension, you have activity map module enabled, loaded on your website. Once you do that, you'll see the option to collect the internal links. You need to make sure that you have selected that one. That gives you an ability to select three different methods. So the first method in itself, as it specifies, it doesn't wait for the next page view call. You'll see once you implement this, as soon as the user clicks on a hyperlink to navigate from one page to another, there would be a separate collect call. So if you pay the attention, this would be the collect call where activity map variables will be passed in as context data variables, which again, then using processing rules will be mapped to your specific report suite. This tracking call is different from the interact one. So it helps you filter down to interact as your sent event page view calls, and then collect for your custom link tracking or activity map tracking calls. Uh, Anu, do you want to take us to the second option?
Yeah. So the second option, like we'll combine the second and third option together. So both of them would send the data in the next page view event. So that is called event grouping. So it's not sent as a separate event. Instead, it is sent along with the next server call. So there is no additional server call incurred in here. So we'll be selecting this option. So we did try this out once, and so we can share. That is how we are able to say share the screenshot here. So what we've done is we choose the second option with the session storage, and then once this is done and the library is built and published, then you can see that this would then be sent along with the next page view event. So this is the interact call that is happening. So as you can see, that all these values are mapped in the context data. So under activity map, you can see all these values which were earlier present in the like colored call that was happening as a separate one. So this value would be stored in the local storage or in the session storage based on the option that you select from these two, and then this would be like sent along with the next page view event or the page load server call. So this is the option that would not incur any other additional charges or incur any additional server calls. So if this is the option that is chosen, then there won't be like any additional server calls, meaning the bounce rate would be unaffected. But instead, if the first option is selected, then that would send additional server call as and when the clicks are happening. That would mean it would reduce the bounce rate. And we hope that answers this question. But Abhinav, would you like to add anything else?
I think I know you've pretty much covered it all, but just a quick recap of this. So if you plan to use additional server calls, there is an option for you to enable it. As soon as a user clicks, there will be a click call. This would incur additional server call usage and your bounce rate would be affected. And then apart from that, there are two different options. One is the session storage, where your activity map tracking would be decoupled with your next page view call. There are no additional server charges or server calls that would happen with respect to this. And then your bounce rate is also not impacted.
Yeah.
I know one important thing I want to iterate here is
Yeah.
if at all the question is directly related to whether it will increase the server call or not, yeah, I would say that there are two options, right? Whatever we were discussing till now, there are
Yeah.
two options. One option is, let's say if at all we want to track or we want to track the metric on the click, anyhow additional call would be there. If at all we don't want to track the call on the click, rather we want to capture it as a part of next page view, then a cookie or local storage session will be set, and then the next page you call it will be captured. But
Yes.
irrespective of both, I don't think so. Purposefully, there is an increase in the server call, or there will be a impact of bounce rate. The reason is because, let's say if at all you are landed in a page, the first page, and you didn't click on anything, then ideally it is considered as a bounce. So you don't
Yes.
click anything. So irrespective of whether it's captured in a button click or not, it won't be captured. When if you click on any of the link, ideally it is not a bounce because you click on it, it has to land into a page or it has to trigger a server call, right? So
Yeah.
at any time, this will not have any impact in the bounce rate. That is the first point. The second point is, since because recent times people are also asking about the bounce rate, one important
Mhm.
thing we need to note about the bounce rate is, let's say if at all you have an A40,
Yes.
and people who has A40 would know that there is a proposition call or display call, decisioning call, right? Which will also go on. So if there is a decisioning call going on top of your page you call, this
Hmm.
will affect the
Bounce rate.
overall bounce rate, right?
Yes.
Because it is like a hidden one, right? And most of the
Hmm.
people did not know. And the reason I want to bring this up is Adobe came up with a solution during November to have a
Hmm.
split call strategy for this. Right? Rather than having a single call strategy, Adobe came up with an approach to address this particular problem because it has been raised before a year, I guess so. And Adobe came up with the solution of split call approach. If you just go and check the split call approach strategy in Adobe Target documentation, you would easily come to know that how to arrest the additional server call which is coming from the decisioning and not accounted for a bounce rate. So
Sure.
bounce rate issue is mostly related to that, and the activity
Hmm.
mode is completely fine. Like
Yeah.
measurement, this is also something which can really help us, and I don't think so it is affecting the bounce rate at any time.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Like if the link is taking the user to a next page, then there definitely be the page load for that particular page. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
That's correct.
Unless that click is within this page only, that would be
It's
yeah.
a single page application.
Yes.
Even if you click on it, then you did some activity, so it is not a bounce considered, right?
Yeah.
Typically, even
Yeah.
for Adobe Analytics app measurement, because
Yeah.
we would fire some calls if it's a single page application.
Yeah.
It is not like a local storage as well. It's a single page application, right? So new context
Yes.
will be loaded and new content will be seen. So it is not a bounce. So
Yeah.
yeah, question is a little bit tricky, but still, yeah.
Hmm. Yes.
About
Just like the certification questions. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Sumit, would you like to add anything on this? All right. If not, we'll move on to the next question then.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this person asks, Pardon if I asked this before. In Workspace, is there a way to? Then there are two questions. First is filter a table by metric values. Example, show only pages with greater than 1,000 visits. Reason, when comparing date ranges by percentage change, the lowest volume, the highest volatility dimension values dominate the report. We want to remove them. And so probably like we'll go through this once and then we'll come back to the second one later. So Abhinav, would you like to go?
Absolutely. So we tried to filter down based upon the metric value. To be very honest, we didn't find a very straightforward way to do that. There is just small hacks that you can do in order to reflect the right attributes. Probably filter a metric by the desired value. And one of the method that seemed to work for us partially was setting up a calculated metric. So, for example, in this example, what we have done is we have created an all visits calculated metric and used an if else logic. What we are trying to achieve here is we are trying to set a metric value greater than a specific threshold, depending upon the use case that you plan to implement. And if that condition is met, we should be able to return the same metric back. If not, we should be able to return a empty or null, zero value itself. Now, when we use the specific value in a table, this is how we are able to filter. So for example, here we have used visits greater than 53,000 as a calculate metric. So as per the dimension, wherever this condition is met, we are able to return the specific visits. Where the condition is not met, we have written zero. So this would be one of the ways that we are able to filter down to the specific number of metric value.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the point to be noted is the other dimension items would still be here, though it's zero. But then it's just that only the highest value items, or in this case, the person was specifically asking for greater than 1,000 visits. So only those dimension items would be displayed in the table. So Arun, Sumit, would you like to add anything?
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So the simple answer is yes, that is a hack which we were seeing right now. But unfortunately, you know that segmentation is not based on the dimension values, but based on the hit visit or visitor, right? So since because we have these three bucketing system, unfortunately, I don't think so. That is an option to filter out only the values that
Yes.
we want to see. So that is opted out now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the hack is this. So you just need to go and use the larger than, if all you use a larger than a particular value, it will ideally result in one or zero. So
Yeah.
that is also one more simple calculation which I do, Abhinav, right? What I will do is I just go and use greater than equal to zero and into visits. So usually, if it is greater than zero, it will return one. If it is lesser than zero, it will return zero. If I put into visits, then it will give you ideally the same answer, even if
Mhm.
without visiting, if or else condition. So that is a
Oh,
simple methodology which I usually use. So that might be also very useful for you if at all you are using it. If you don't want to like go on with multiple functions like if, condition, and everything, right? A simple one.
sure. Yeah. And as we all mentioned, like there is no like direct way to like filter out all these metric values. But if it's anything related to dimension, you can always use the filtering or even segments, and then I apply that here. That'd be an easier way. But for metrics, unfortunately, we have to go with this workarounds. Not sure if this specifically answers that person's question, but yeah, this is the workaround that we can go ahead with. All right, so shall we move to the second part of the question then? So
Yep.
Sure.
that is about sort a table by dimension values. Like we can when segment names are in rows instead of dimensions. So yeah, everyone wouldn't know that if we statically add or like draw dimension items from the left into the freeform table panel, then we can sort that. But ideally, if it's a dynamic dimension items, then there is like no direct way to sort that. So if it is segments or if it's something related to the time related dimensions, then I think we can sort that. But if it's any other valued dimension items that is also dynamic, then there won't be any direct way to do it. But one thing to note that is that if it's like a smaller table, and if you can like drop the items like manually from the, like say in this case if it's page, and then if you can like manually select these items and then drag and drop it here, then in that case you'd be able to sort it. You'd see an arrow here, and then you'd be able to sort this. Abhinav, Arun, Sumit, would you like to add?
Sure, I can just quickly add. So, if you're reporting on a dimension by dragging and dropping in the workspace, the only option that you would see would be filtering. You don't get to see an ascending or descending order by the dimension itself, although it's totally supported on the matrix. If you want to use ascending descending sorting option on a specific dimension, and there is a small subset of values that you need to add, one of the ways that we are able to do it in the current workspaces by dragging and dropping and filtering down to the specific elements that we want to report on. And in this scenario, you would see we get an option to sort by the dimension, both ascending as well as descending alphabetically.
Yes, alphabetically.
Yeah, it's the
Uh,
same case for me as well. I don't think so. There is another option, but people, in terms of sorting, alphabetical order, this is the easiest option. I will just go with whatever Abhinav and Anu said. But even in addition to the sorting, you need to sort it in such a way that, right, you need to have a specific item first and second, right? You can still use a table builder option. So if you click on free form table, there is an option for you to build the table, right? And you can also show that enter creating a new free form table. You can create a plus and below it. Let's see if you can see that, right? The first one. Yeah. Click on it. Yeah. Yeah. So there is an option for you to go and build your freeform table, right? Enable table builder. In that way, in addition to the sorting based on the alphabetical order, you can also sort it in any way that however you wanted your segments to be in. But since because it is like manually drag and drop, I don't think so dynamically for like huge
Yeah.
segments it will be really feasible. But
Hmm.
still, at least for some feeble amount, it can really be helpful.
Yeah. So say if you have like line items more than like say 400, then definitely not possible. Like
Correct.
not even 400, but yeah,
Even less.
anything that you cannot manually manage. Yeah. Yeah. So shall we move on to the next question then?
Yes, sir.
yes,
Oh,
Anand.
yeah. So this is about using use beacon and about some cancel network calls. So the context is I've taken on a project where custom codes were used liberally to do the implementation. It was discovered that the cancel beacon were alleviated when a 3-second delay was added to the rule. This was a recommendation from Adobe support at that time. However, now we have a 3-second delay when user click on our links, and we still see the cancel beacons on this rule. Now, our goal is to address the root cause, and the method we are looking to employ is to use the use beacon method. The issue is, even with the use beacon method being set to true on the Adobe extensions, we are seeing the beacons getting cancelled during testing. I would like to know ways I can troubleshoot to see why the use beacon method is failing and what I can do to avoid the cancelled beacons. So I'd probably start with this. So I was also facing something similar a few years back. So at that time, we did a DTM to launch migration, and there were a few rules in our DTM that actually had this like link click delay. So all these links were taking the user to the next page, but then to track these values using custom code, which was like a big chunk of code, around 100 plus lines, but then we used some few milliseconds, around 500 milliseconds or so as a delay. And then this was also like migrated to launch. And um, we had the same issue there. We could see the server calls getting canceled. And then we also tried to use the use beacon method. We said that s.use beacon is equal to true in the beginning of the custom code, and then tried executing that. And then I wouldn't say that was a total success because we could still see canceled calls at times. So we also did connect with Adobe at that time, and then I wouldn't say that's a solution per se, but one suggestion that we got was to optimize our code, because that was around 100 plus lines of code, and then this click is taking the user to the next page. Though we did use this use beacon and try with that delay, there was still calls getting cancelled, and that was because there was loads of logic being evaluated in that short span of time. And we did try to optimize the code and also try to optimize the rules. So there was this one single rule which we tried to make it as two or three separate ones based on the code conditions. So for certain block, if it's really too big to handle in a single rule, then what we did is we aborted certain part of the conditions with the nested abort, and then had another rule to act for it. Even with this, it wasn't a complete success, but then it did um, while we were uh, searching for that, analyzing that in the workspace, we could see that it is reduced, but then it wasn't a complete solution. If you um, go to the network tab and check that all over again. So I would say again, this would be a question of how much custom code can you use, and also about again, that's a debate, right, about how much custom code can you use. Um, so yeah, Abhinav, Arun, would you like to add?
Sure, I can talk about this. So technically, I think this is one of the challenges that we all have must faced when we are implementing CTA tracking, and we can see the calls are getting cancelled when users are navigating from one page to another. The typical causes by the time our routes render and send out the beacon, either we don't get a response back, the document unloads, or or there was some issue with the tracking call, it didn't went through. So this is one of the key challenges that I think it's very common when we are working on tracking the CTS. Now, DTM had one of the best features with respect to link delay tracking. You can add a specific 2000, 1000, 3000 millisecond delay, and it will actually honor that. You were less susceptible to get this issue. But with the launch, in my experience with the hands-on, I see that first, if you try to set up a delay, there is a warning sign that you would see which tells you that this is an not recommended approach to do. But in certain scenarios where you have a long set of conditions that you need to render through in order to get a specific value, you would have to add certain level of delay. Now, the interesting fact is that use beacon flag, s.use beacon flag, first, you need to set it before every link tracking call that you need to pass back. And secondly, I am not sure. I read the documentation. Technically, it uses navigator.usebeacon, a browser API, depending upon if the browser supports it or not. But I am not sure if it actually helps with respect to the delay. The only thing that I could see difference with respect to how we track clicks versus how we track clicks with use beacon flag set to true is that in the general methodology, we would see a GIF call, a GIF file sent with 200 status code return. And in the scenario of use beacon, you would see the call made with a ping type on the browser itself. But how does it efficiently resolve the delay in itself? That is something which is a mystery. It might not be a 100% solution to that. Pradeep, would you like to shed light on some light on this?
Yeah. Okay. So ask me a direct question. Do you want to use beacon? No, don't use. Okay. Simple as that. Because it has nothing to do with Adobe or nothing to do with any other solution, right? It is a technology problem. It is a browser problem. It is a irrespective of whether you use dot beacon is nothing but a on before unload, right? We know that is a generic term we use for any browsers, which means irrespective of anything, it is based on your internet speed and your browser variation and everything. So if there is a technological issue or technology issue, I would say that don't try to increase the delay or work on something, right, which will be never solved. Because if it would have been solved, the visits would have been in a different case altogether. Right now the visit is calculated not based on the unload, right? Even if you close the browser and you come back within 5 minutes, visit is still counted. The reason is because Adobe knows that there is no such a logic to understand the browser closure. So you need to wait for 30 minutes to make sure that the visit is expired, right? So the only option for you in here is capture that particular action in the next page view
Next
call.
page.
Simple as that. We have done, Abhinav said and Anu said that their experience, I can easily understand that based on the experience, that even though you go and delay it, use multiple things, that will be still an option. Even if you didn't see it in your QA or QC, don't think that it will be like 100% firing, because in the real world scenario, you would have 1,001 scenario, right? And that scenario would have never been tested. So
Yes.
no before unload, no use beacon, right? These are the options. Sometimes, some cases, we should be supposed to use it during the time. If there is no option, please do. Else, we have a cool features, right? We can set a variable value in a data element which can persist till the end of the session, persist till the end of the next page. A lot of options are there. Use those options, capture it, put it on the click, capture the values, put it in the next page view and capture it. That is the best way.
Yeah. And if I recall, like in our case, when we were facing this, the client didn't want that to be loaded in the next page load. So we were like stuck with these options.
Right. Yeah. If there is no
Yeah,
option, ideally we are also run out of it, right? See, for an exit or for an download, not a problem at all.
not a
Only
problem at
whenever
all.
it is an internal link. But even if it is an internal link, anyhow, next page is definitely going to be loaded. But some cases, even if it is not an exit, let's say we have multiple sites and we are just navigating within multiple sites of the same
Yes.
brand,
Yeah.
then during the time, the good options you can have is, right, open it in the new tab.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Right.
open it in the
Yeah.
same tab, right?
Yeah.
See, change the experience. If at all you cannot change the technology, change the experience. That is a simple option.
Yeah.
Usually that is the best methodology we follow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that person who's wrote this question actually got some ideas. Like we discussed multiple ideas to navigate that. So yeah. Um, all right. So apart from this, like if you also like ask about using custom code, right? So what do you guys think?
I think at very high level, I believe it should be very, very much optimized. In an ideal way, there shouldn't be dependency on custom code, at least with the link tracking calls. You
Hmm.
should have everything appended into the data layer, and you should be extracting values right away. It should be as clear as possible.
Yeah.
But over a period of time, you get different requirements. There are some issues with the data layer. You try to resolve by yourself, add some conditions because you know it will work as expected. And a couple of years down the line, your rule now has probably 50, 70, 80 lines to execute. And that is where you run into the challenges.
Yeah. And the first person who wrote the code in there would not be in the project anymore. So yeah, that also happens. Yeah. Arun, would you like to add?
Yeah, I will just agree with both of you, right? I don't have any second thought process on that, right? Completely agree.
All right. So these were the questions that we had, like, pre-submitted, and then we do have like, few um, nuggets of information from the product release and also the ones that are going for the end of life notices. So, Abhinav, would you like to take this one? So, about product release information. So, we have something related to like setting like the ones that has high cardinality that would be set to like data warehouse only, meaning this will not be like available in analytics workspace. So,
Right. So I think this is one of the product releases that we were reviewing earlier, and we thought that it would be best to share it across with
yes.
everyone. So if you see, starting May 2025, so Adobe will be setting some of the dimensions like keywords and prop that we regularly use to track different values across our implementation. And some of these dimensions or variables that you use to track high cardinality values, that means there are more unique values in these elements that with respect to other conversion variables that you are tracking. Some of these values you would expect not to be able to report as expected using Adobe Analysis Workspace. But instead of Workspace, these would still be available back in Data Warehouse. You would be able to extract all the unique values combinations that you have tracked in your specific dimension, and so that should not be a problem. But the flexibility of using workspace to track some of these values and report exhaustively, that might not be available as expected. Now, if you in the current setup as well, if you see that if you have a high cardinality dimension that you try to report on, you would see a low traffic, something like low
Yes.
traffic appear in your reports. These are all your high cardinality dimensions or values that have been grouped together in order to make sure the data is processed properly when you are trying to report in the workspace.
I
Uh,
was seriously thinking what is meant by high cardinality values. Then I realized that it is like a sampled value, right? Since because you said low
Yes.
traffic.
Yeah.
So
Exactly, exactly. So these would be some of the unique values that you have tracked, but in terms of metric count, Adobe hasn't recorded them as much as it should have. So it
yeah,
will group all of these values together under low traffic.
good that you said low traffic. I guess I would have not even realized what is that, right? If you
Oh,
come with the technical name of like high cardinality. Yeah, okay. So the low traffic sample values now will not be shown at all. Is that the update? Okay, great. It is good for my information as
But
well.
but again, these values are available in data warehouse. If you plan to extract an exhaustive list of all the values, even with probably one instance of that, you can use data warehouse to extract the complete list.
Okay. It is saying that
yeah.
dimensions will no longer be available for reporting in Adobe Analytics. Dimension or that the low values alone will not be available.
The release says dimensions
Oh, is it so?
and mentions, yeah, custom variables such as evars and drops. Probably by May or in the beginning of May, we would have like, more clarity onto what exactly this is. But
Exactly.
yeah, anyone who's like working with this kind of values, like, that has huge amount of dimension items coming in, like timestamps or any easy ideas or something of that sort, it's better to watch out.
Okay, okay. Because it says dimensions, I'm just thinking, let's say there is a low traffic for me for one of the dimension. Can I cannot use that particular dimension into my workspace at all? Because
Mm-hmm.
dimension itself not available is the documentation, right? It is not saying that the
Yeah.
low traffic values are not available.
Yes.
Rather,
Yes.
it is saying the dimension is not
This
available.
itself is not available, and it is explicitly says custom variables such as evars and drops. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we need to get to see it in action. So what's happening with that? Yeah.
Exactly. We'll need to see how it works in the workspace. Do we see the dimension or not?
Yeah. Or just say, yeah, low traffic items or yeah.
This is great. Thanks for bringing this, No and Binam. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah.
And the next one is about end of life notice. Again, this is with this. I think many of us are already familiar when we have been getting notifications from Adobe to switch from our JWT credentials to OAuth credentials. But then there is this new notification about this. So yeah, it says everyone should migrate to the OAuth one by June 30, 2025.
Yeah.
I think,
So it is the end of 1.4, right? So that's why they are just closing out
uh,
it. Have you
Yes.
ever worked on 1.4 API, guys? No one have.
No,
we
I did only 2.0. Yeah.
To be very
Okay.
honest, we have been using 1.4 API extensively. We haven't
Oh,
migrated to 2.0. There are certain differences with respect to how 2.0 API works versus 1.4. And over a period of time, we feel that we are more familiar with 1.4, so easier to navigate through the
Oh,
documentation. You still have some of the pre-built boilerplate code you
mhm.
can reuse to probably do whatever you were planning to do. With 2.0, I think there is some upskilling that we would require with respect to the documentation. And personally, I feel 1.4 has been more useful. Let's see how 2.0 works.
Sure.
great, great. Since because you already worked on 1.4. I guess I'm not the older guy in the room then. Okay.
All right.
But just to add to this, I think if you're working with Adobe Developer Console, if you have admin access to that, or if you're working as a system administrator, you must be getting these emails to notify you
Every
with
time,
respect to
yes. Yes. Yeah.
every week you would get an alert letting
Yes.
you know different integrations that you have created in Developer Console, still
Yes.
using JWT pending for migration to auth server to server credentials. And I think this is one of the good things that have happened over a period of time, because with JWT credentials, it was a little challenging to set up a new public certificate and private key with your specific extension date. By default, you can do it In Adobe Developer Console, it will generate a public key and private key for you. You always need to keep track of your private key. If you lose it, you need to redo or regenerate the credentials for yourself. By default, if you use Adobe Developer Console to set up these public key and private keys, it would have 1 year of expiration. Then after 1 year, you need to redo and regenerate a new key. But with server-to-server credentials, the process is very smooth. First of all, there is an option to never expire. That means client ID, client secret that is generated for you, it remains as is until you manually log into the developer console and expire it for yourself. So technically, if you set up an integration once, you should be able to use this as long as you want. All you need to do is generate your access token every time you plan to authenticate into Adobe Analytics APIs.
Yeah. And I guess this notifications has been like going on from like late in 2023 onwards. So I guess like almost everyone who's planned would have already done this. But if anyone has not taken notice of this, this would need to be done by June 30. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Now it's time for us to like discuss about some peaks about the Adobe Summit 2025. So our champions here, like Arun and Sumit, did attend this in person, and I think we have Ivan as well. So if you guys could please share your experience. Yeah,
Uh, oh, okay. You said Abhinav or Arun? Okay, let me go
I
then.
said Arun. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and Sumit
Uh,
also. Yeah, I think
yeah,
Sumit
thank
added this one in. Yeah.
Okay. I just posted the top 10 items that are like hot in terms of Adobe Summit. And yeah, and this time Adobe Summit was so great. And I had a lot of learnings, a lot of knowledge exchanges. And we, as Adobe champions, we met together, we took a lot of photos and all these things, right? It was full of fun as well as full of learning. And if you ask me, what are the 10 key takeaways right from Adobe Summit? Unfortunately, I didn't attend all the keynotes and everything because we were into the booth and we were doing a lot of other activities as well. But still, if you ask me to summarize, give me the top 10 key takeaways with the Adobe Summit, right? I have just pasted it in the chat as well. The first one I would go with is the introduction. One thing which excited me is right, Adobe platform, right now it is Microsoft Azure, right? And now it will also support AWS. So Adobe said that, hey, we will support AWS. So who were itching Adobe in terms of like, hey, tell me whether it can support AEP, can support AWS, right? Yes. Now it can support, and Adobe opened the option for that as well, right? That is the first important announcement that I heard in the keynote. The second one is Adobe also introduced Adobe Experience Platform Agent Orchestrator. In a simple word, what I would say is the AI layer on top of it, right? There are three different layers in terms of AEP. We have a data lake, we have a service layer, and we have an application layer. But in addition to the service layer, right, what they have introduced is the complete AI agent layer, right? There are multiple different types of AI agents, and the purpose would be completely different. But that AI agent can help us in terms of automating the workflow within all of our tools. It can be a data, it can be a content, it can be something else from the what I would say, right? Activation point of view, right? Anything in the AEP, right? AEP ecosystem, if at all there is some process, if at all we want to automate it and we want to effectively look into it, right, this AI agents will definitely help us, right? So that is the second one. The AI layer on top of AEP is one of the big announcement which I have heard. And the introduction of Adobe Brand Concierge, yeah, which is again in AI, but the difference between a Adobe Brand Concierge versus the AI assistant is AI agent will help us help us, right, as an enterprise architect or as an implementation architect, right, or as a marketers, it will help us in terms of automating our workflows. But brand concierge help, right? The AI assistant will help the customers, right? Rather than we go and search for something in Amazon, if at all we have embedded Adobe Brand Concierge, then automatically you can go and ask for something to AI. But rather than a typical live agent, it can go and get all the data from the AEP based on your personalization, based on the recommendation. it can give you any sort of recommendation. That was cool sneaks that has been that are there in recorded session, as well as some of the live demos are there. So if at all you didn't see that, I would definitely, I highly encourage you to see the second day keynote. Right, second day keynote covered a lot of these aspects. So just go and check it out. Adobe Brand Concerts. Everybody are talking about brand concerts. Yeah, before it being hyped, you know about all these things, right? You know how cool it is because it's a AI, right? So Adobe Brand Concerts, it is going to be a talk of the town at least for a few weeks from, if you ask me. So go and read through it. That is the third item. Yeah, and AI agents across the entire flow. We have entire cloud, Adobe Cloud, not only AEP. AEP layer is different. In addition, AI agents are introduced for the entire supply chain itself, right? If you think about a content supply chain, starting from the creative to the document and then to the experience, there are AIs. Adobe is utilizing Sensei and making sure that, right, in the entire process they are introducing all these AI agents so that our process will be much more smoother, cleaner, and then the assistive version of it, right? So that is what I would say. And there are few expansion of Adobe Firefly services. Always Firefly services is something which I love to see whenever I am in Summit with all the colorful images and everything. I have played around with Firefly services like anything, and recently also I have done a lot of creative works. Okay, so I really want to shift from experience to a creative side by seeing all these steps. So it was so cool. So Firefly services expansion is one of the thing. And yeah, from the content supply chain, there is an introduction of, like, or I would say that enhancement of Adobe Gen Studio. So a lot of process and a lot of approval workflow has been completely automated in such a way that, right, the content supply chain is now fulfilled with the Adobe Workfront as well. So the next one is Gen Studio enhancement and the introduction of AJO B2B edition. Since we from, I guess it is like quite pending for a while right now. So we started, the AEP started with B2C, and then it come up with the platform level enhancement for B2B, and we have RTCDP B2B. Now we have AJO B2B as well, right? So that is an introduction. Yeah, I didn't go and went through it because most of the time my experiences are on B2C, and for the recent 2 to 3 years I was working in B2B after the introduction of RTCDP. So I'll be really I'll be amazed if at all it can also support, right? If AJ is supporting B2B, I really want to understand what are the use cases where B2B clients can solve, and a lot of B2B enhancement, right? I can see that that is a separate session for B2B enhancements and everything. So take it, either it is enhancement from the current RTCDP version, or else it's the introduction of AJO, or else it's Adobe Commerce. B2B specific environments were really high, and this time we were focusing on B2B, I guess, so because a lot of requests coming to Adobe in terms of B2B, and if at all we want to take Marketo out and at least go along with Marketo, then definitely B2B is very important, and that's why I guess Adobe made all these announcements, which is fabulous. And then the last one is, yes, Adobe Commerce is now open for cloud services like AEM. So people who are like waiting for it and wanting for it, right? You can utilize Adobe Commerce as a cloud service as well. So these are some of the top 10 points which I would say which really grabbed my attention. Other than all the other innovation, all our partners had, right? Plenty of innovation this time. Compared to last year, Anu and Abhinav. So in terms of innovation, the innovation pool was like really higher. Last time we have seen somewhere around 10 to 15 innovations related, even our partners, right? Along with partners, there are like 10 to 15 booths where we were able to see some innovation. This time, everywhere you see, there is some innovation. And with all the Adobe's partnership with Microsoft for Copilot and SAP for some of their AI agents, right? The partnership is becoming higher, and then and then these people are building together some fabulous items. So I really loved those innovations everywhere. There are a lot of things I can just count on it, but this time the innovations are really higher. I'm super excited with all these innovations.
That's good to hear, Arun. I think you pretty much summarized the
Yeah,
entire
entire
summit for
summit
us.
experience. Yeah, and I think all these sessions, the online sessions are already there, but then the other sessions that are also recorded would be like made available in the Experience Link portal. So in the Summit portal. So once you do have time, please do watch out for all the sessions. I know, like there were like many of the great sessions, especially with CJA and all. So if you guys are watching, waiting for that, then that'll be like made available pretty soon. So watch out for that as well. Then,
One of the other thing is our champion Lokesh Alluri got his first ambassador award this time, and I really want to give a huge shout out to him because we were there, and this is the first time we got an ambassador award, right? So I guess earlier a lot of people as well, but this time I was there and able to see that how these vibes are and all these things. Experience Maker Awards was really fabulous. So huge shout out to Lokesh. He's not here today, but he
and
participated in all the EMEA, right? I want to give a shout
yeah,
out to him as well. It was great to see him to hold the Experience Maker Award, that to the Ambassador Award, right? It is for our champions family, and I was like super happy about it and super proud.
yeah, and also special shout out to Mandy for being like selected as the rock star for the consecutively for the second year. So
Yeah.
yeah,
See that is another thing, right? And so every time I can see Mandy, there will be a rockstar submission, right? I don't know how she is able to manage all these things with this. Sometimes I wonder. I want to be like her. Great.
Exactly. And I'm a huge fan of her calculated matrix
magic
playbook. I think
playbook,
this is one of the
yes,
items that I have handy whenever you are in trouble trying to find something that works or not. It has pretty fabulous examples.
We
yes,
have a repository to store that in our DAM. Okay, we in our company, right? We made sure that we downloaded it and we have saved it. And multiple times I promoted the perspectives to make sure that, right, at least it is reaching out to everyone, right? Such a fabulous PDF, right? So
yes,
we have it. So yeah, so that's sometimes, right. These all these learnings. So one of that is what, right? The thought leadership and the skill exchange we got in out of some in summit or out of summit, right, with the champions program as well as with Adobe Experience League. It is fabulous. Every time I see all these questions, I always feel like these are giving us, or these are taking back with or giving us all the knowledge that we wanted, even though we don't often work on all these end tools, right? At least for the recent times. So yeah, it's great.
absolutely, yeah. And I remember like Mandy saying about something like she spent like over an year about like working on the calculator play,
6 months more, yeah.
matrix play, yeah, 6 months or something, yeah. It's amazing, like yeah. Anyone else
Yeah,
want to share
said
their
that there
summit
is one more question
experience?
as well. Can we refresh and see? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we have two segments, one visit container and one hit container in AA, both using the same URL, which expire on visit. Okay,
Okay. So
standard default setup. This URL captures the logged in state of the user on every page you hit, wherever possible. Example, segment 1, visit container, UR1 is equal to logged in. Segment 2, hit container, UR1 is logged in. When we pull a report using bot segment with the visit metric, okay, we were expecting the numbers to be same. However, we saw the visits for the visit container segment to larger than the hit container segment. Would there be any scenario where this could happen? Have you experienced this before? So, Aaron, would you like to take this or?
I'm just going through this since because it is just added newly, right? I'm just going through this. See, at any time, whenever you use a greater container, the numbers will be really high, right? For the greater containers, the number is going to be high. But you
Yes.
also said that the EVAs which equals visits, right? Which is a expectation is visit, which means that I'm thinking that if you close the session, or if the end of the session, it won't persist at all. In that particular case, ideally the ideal value has to be equal, even if you ask me. But one good thing I learned in terms of Adobe is, or even Adobe in the technology world is, Real world scenarios are completely different from what we see in Adobe Analytics or what we see in front of our
Documentation or yeah.
in front of our eyes. It will be completely different. So might be I'm just thinking through. I'm just putting the segmentation on top of it, right? Yeah. If at all anybody else has something, right, please go on. I just want to think through once again, because if at all I want to give a solid answer, then I need to think through as well. If at all we are not covering in this particular session, definitely we can cover it in the next session as well. So
I don't have any thoughts on top of mind. To be very honest, I'm still trying to review
Me
this and
too.
understand what could be the reason for this. It looks like a clear case, but there are a couple of things that we would need to check, like what are the different values that the EVAR1 is supposed to track. As it was mentioned that EVAR1 is supposed to persist for only the visit, it should expire post the visit. In that scenario, the visit container should only report on the visits where this hit with EVAR1 locked in was available. But if you go by the hit container where you're looking for EVAR1 equal to locked in value, that means all the visits where this hit qualifies should be able to report. From the metric perspective, you already have visits. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around
yeah,
what would be the
one
possible
thing,
reason behind
yeah,
this.
one thing I would say is might be, let's say today I am so the time period is today. And if at all I will say time period is today, then it will be from 12:01 to 12:59, right? So which means if I put a heat container, then time constraint is upward for me, right? I can give an exact number. But if I put a visit container, the visit would have started by 11:50 and it would have ended by 12 o'clock, right? So if that is the case, right, let's say the logged in count is somewhere around 11:50, and since because the visit session extended till like till 12, 10, 12, 20, since because you put a visit container and this visit container is also overlapping some sort of portion in after 12, I guess that is one case I can think through, a corner case. But I don't think so. The number should be a huge difference. If it is like lesser than 1% or not even 1%, then I would be fine. But it would not be, sometimes it will not be exactly equal, right? If there is, let's say 52,101, then it can be like 52,103, 4, something like that. But if it is a huge difference,
That's correct understanding. Yeah,
then we need to think through, right? But one or two cases, business, because that is overlapping, right? Because we know that the container of session is 30 minutes, so it is a different case altogether. Sometimes there will overlapping on your previous day and the next day as well. So that might be one of the reason. One of the reason of corner cases. I'm just thinking other reasons. So what are the other cases? Um, since because you are using a visit as a metric. If you are using page use as a metric, it's a different case. Since because you are using visit, um, at least able to get one.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Like, using if it was the page use, that's happening in all the page view, right? This is being set on all the page view hits. So,
Yeah, let's create this segment. So I don't know, since because we have only 1 more minute. So what we will do is let's create a metric and we will see what are the other typical corner cases which we can think through, and we can present it during the next session, right? If at
next one,
all person
yes.
who submitted the question is here, yeah, please wait for the next or EMEA campaigns are as well, so that we will create a segment and see how it is like even resulting out the numbers in our sandbox. That will also give us some sort of idea. If I like, we can break it down by something else, like rather than time. Let's say if at all there are other, we just need to do a POC and see what's happening over there.
exactly. Yes.
We'll come back to you.
Sure.
So hold
Yeah.
for so then you have a very good reason to come back to the next champions.
Next one, yes. Yeah.
So please
So
come back.
stay tuned for the next one. Like, we'll get the answer for this one. All right. So I think we are at time. So for the closing note, if anyone has anything,
I'm good.
I,
Yeah.
me as well. I think we are right on time.
yes. So thank you everyone for joining this office hours. We'll see you on the next one.
Okay, thank you
Thank
If
you,
you
everyone.
have any
everyone.
more questions, please do submit it for the next one. Yeah, we'll answer.
Perfect.
Sure.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Thanks, Anu. Thanks, Abhinav. Bye.